In the vast expanse of the galaxy, there existed an empire so powerful that its name struck fear into the hearts of countless civilizations. At the helm of this mighty empire stood the alien Empress, a figure of unparalleled authority and strength. With her piercing gaze and commanding presence, she ruled her dominion with an iron fist, ensuring that all who inhabited her realm bowed before her unwavering might. The Empress sat upon her throne, a majestic seat crafted from the rarest materials in the universe. Her chambers, adorned with the spoils of countless conquests, served as a testament to her unrivaled power. The walls were lined with intricate tapestries depicting her glorious victories, while the floors gleamed with the sheen of precious metals mined from the farthest reaches of her empire. As she surveyed her domain, the Empress couldn't help but feel a sense of superiority over all other beings. In her eyes, no other species could match the advanced technology, the disciplined armies, and the sheer magnitude of her empire. And among all the inferior races that populated the galaxy, there was one that she considered particularly insignificant: humans. To the Empress, humans were nothing more than a primitive species, barely worth her attention. She had heard tales of their backwater planet, a world consumed by chaos and conflict. Their technology was laughable compared to the marvels of her own civilization, and their military prowess was hardly worth mentioning. In her mind, humans were little more than insects, scurrying about their insignificant lives, unaware of the true power that ruled the stars. However, little did the Empress know that her perception of humans was about to be shattered. In a distant corner of the galaxy, far from the watchful eyes of her empire, the humans had been quietly amassing their strength. What began as a small alliance of human colonies had grown into a formidable force, united by a common goal: to defend their way of life against any and all threats. For years, the humans had been secretly developing advanced technologies that rivaled those of the Empress herself. They had pooled their resources, their brightest minds working tirelessly to create weapons and ships that could stand against the might of the alien empire. And now, after countless sacrifices and relentless determination, they had finally achieved the impossible. The human Armada, a fleet of 200 supercarriers, each one a marvel of engineering and firepower, stood ready to challenge the Empress's rule. These massive vessels, equipped with state-of-the-art weaponry and shielding, were a testament to the ingenuity and resilience of the human spirit. The supercarriers were not just ships. They were symbols of hope, of defiance against tyranny, and of the indomitable will of a species that refused to be subjugated. As the Empress sat upon her throne, blissfully unaware of the gathering storm, a messenger burst into her chambers, bearing news that would shake the very foundations of her empire. The messenger, trembling with fear, approached the Empress and knelt before her, his head bowed in submission. "Your Majesty," the messenger said, his voice quivering, "I bring urgent news from the far reaches of the galaxy." The Empress, her curiosity piqued, leaned forward on her throne. "Speak," she commanded, her voice echoing through the chamber. The messenger took a deep breath, knowing that his next words would change the course of history. "The humans, Your Majesty. They have built an armada, a fleet of 200 supercarriers, each one more powerful than anything we have ever seen." The Empress's eyes widened in disbelief, her grip tightening on the armrests of her throne. "Impossible," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "The humans are weak, insignificant. They could not possibly pose a threat to my empire." But as the messenger relayed more details about the human armada, the Empress felt a growing sense of unease. Could it be true? Could the humans, the very species she had dismissed as beneath her notice, have actually achieved something so monumental? The Empress rose from her throne, her eyes blazing with fury. She would not allow this affront to her power to go unchallenged. If the humans dared to defy her, she would crush them with the full might of her empire. She would show them the true meaning of power, and they would rue the day they ever dared to stand against her. As the Empress summoned her generals and advisors, the galaxy held its breath, waiting for the inevitable clash between two titans. The human armada, a symbol of defiance and hope, stood ready to face the wrath of the alien Empress. And so, the stage was set for a conflict that would determine the fate of the galaxy itself. The alien Empress, enraged by the audacity of the humans, summoned her most trusted generals and advisors to her throne room. The chamber buzzed with tension as the Empress paced back and forth, her eyes ablaze with fury. She had underestimated the humans, a mistake she vowed never to make again. "I want that human armada destroyed," she declared, her voice resonating through the room. "I want them to feel the full might of our empire. They will learn the price of defying me." Her generals, seasoned veterans of countless battles, nodded in agreement. They knew the Empress's wrath was not to be trifled with. They immediately set about devising a plan to crush the human fleet and put an end to their insolence. The Empress's army was a force to be reckoned with. Countless ships, each one a marvel of alien technology, were at her disposal. Her soldiers, trained from birth to be ruthless and efficient, were eager to prove their worth in battle. The Empress was confident that her forces would make short work of the human armada. As the alien fleet set out to intercept the humans, the Empress watched from her throne, a cruel smile playing on her lips. She relished the thought of seeing the humans brought to their knees, of watching their precious supercarriers burn in the cold depths of space. However, what the Empress failed to anticipate was the sheer determination and ingenuity of the human race. As the alien ships closed in on the human armada, they were met with a sight that struck fear into the hearts of even the most battle-hardened soldiers. The human supercarriers, gleaming in the starlight, stood ready to face the alien onslaught. Their hulls were fortified with advanced shielding technology, capable of withstanding even the most powerful of alien weapons. The carriers' flight decks were lined with squadrons of fighter craft, each one piloted by a skilled human ace. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. The human armada, despite being vastly outnumbered, fought with a ferocity and determination that caught the alien forces off guard. The supercarriers' powerful shields absorbed the brunt of the alien assault, while the human fighters darted in and out of the fray, picking off enemy ships with pinpoint accuracy. The Empress watched in disbelief as her forces were pushed back, unable to make a dent in the human defenses. Her generals, once confident in their superiority, now scrambled to find a way to turn the tide of battle. But the humans were relentless, their resolve unbreakable. As the battle raged on, the Empress's frustration grew. She had never encountered an enemy that could withstand the might of her empire. The thought of being bested by mere humans was galling, a blow to her pride that she couldn't bear. In a desperate attempt to salvage victory, the Empress ordered her most powerful weapon to be unleashed upon the human armada. A massive energy beam, capable of obliterating entire planets, was fired from the flagship of the alien fleet. The beam cut through space, its searing heat vaporizing any unfortunate ship that stood in its path. But to the Empress's horror, the human supercarriers stood firm. Their shields, powered by a revolutionary energy source, absorbed the beam's impact, leaving the carriers unscathed. The alien flagship, its energy reserves depleted from the massive discharge, was left vulnerable. Seizing the opportunity, the human fighters swarmed the flagship, unleashing a barrage of missiles and laser fire. The alien vessel, once a symbol of the Empress's power, was reduced to a blazing wreck, its crew scrambling to escape the doomed ship. The Empress watched in stunned silence as her flagship was destroyed, the rest of her fleet scattering in disarray. The human armada, battered but unbroken, stood victorious, a testament to the resilience and courage of the human spirit. As the remnants of her once mighty fleet limped back to the safety of her empire, the Empress was left to ponder the consequences of her arrogance. She had underestimated the humans, and it had cost her dearly. The galaxy would never be the same, and the balance of power had shifted in ways she could never have imagined. The Empress knew that the humans would not rest on their laurels. They had proven themselves to be a force to be reckoned with, and she would need to reassess her strategy if she hoped to maintain her grip on the galaxy. The war between the alien Empress and the human Armada had only just begun, and the fate of countless worlds hung in the balance. In the aftermath of the devastating battle, the alien Empress found herself in a state of disbelief and confusion. The once invincible ruler had never faced a defeat of such magnitude, and the reality of her fleet's failure weighed heavily upon her. As she sat upon her throne, her mind raced with questions and doubts. The Empress summoned her council, a group of the most trusted advisors and strategists in her empire. They gathered before her, their faces etched with concern and uncertainty. The Empress, her voice tinged with a mix of anger and desperation, demanded answers. How could this happen? She asked, her eyes scanning the faces of her council. How could the humans, a species we considered inferior, possess such advanced technology and military might? The council members exchanged uneasy glances, each one hesitant to speak. Finally, one of the advisors stepped forward, bowing his head in deference to the Empress. "Your Majesty," he began, his voice trembling slightly, "it appears that we have greatly underestimated the humans. Our intelligence reports have been woefully inadequate, and we failed to recognize the true extent of their capabilities." The Empress's eyes narrowed, her gaze piercing through the advisor. "Explain," she demanded, her tone leaving no room for evasion. The advisor took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. "The humans, Your Majesty, have been developing their technology in secret for years. They have made remarkable advancements in fields such as propulsion, energy generation, and weapons systems. Their supercarriers are a testament to their ingenuity and resourcefulness." The Empress listened intently, her mind grappling with the implications of this revelation. She had always believed that her empire was the pinnacle of technological achievement, that no other civilization could match their prowess. Yet here she was, faced with the undeniable truth that the humans had surpassed them in ways she had never imagined. Another council member, an elderly strategist with a keen mind, spoke up. "Your Majesty, we must also consider the strength of the human spirit. They fight with a determination and unity that we have rarely encountered. Their belief in their cause, their willingness to sacrifice for the greater good, is a powerful force that cannot be underestimated." The Empress pondered these words, a sense of unease settling over her. She had always relied on the sheer might of her military to maintain control over her empire. But now, faced with an enemy that possessed both technological superiority and an unbreakable will, she realized that her usual tactics might not be enough. As the council members continued to offer their insights and analysis, the Empress's mind raced with potential strategies and countermeasures. She knew that she couldn't afford to underestimate the humans again, and that any future confrontations would require a new level of cunning and adaptability. The Empress dismissed her council, needing time to process the information and formulate a plan. She retired to her private chambers, her thoughts consumed by the daunting task that lay ahead. As she paced the opulent room, the Empress's gaze fell upon a large holographic display that dominated one of the walls. With a wave of her hand, she activated the display, and a detailed map of the galaxy materialized before her eyes. The Empress studied the map, her eyes tracing the intricate web of star systems and trade routes that formed the backbone of her empire. She realized that the humans' victory had not only dealt a blow to her military, but it had also sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy. Other civilizations, once cowed by the might of her empire, would now see the humans as a beacon of hope, a symbol of defiance against tyranny. The Empress knew that she needed to act quickly and decisively. She couldn't allow the humans to gain any more ground, to inspire any more rebellion against her rule. She needed to find a way to neutralize the human threat, to reassert her dominance over the galaxy. But as she pondered her options, a small voice in the back of her mind whispered a different path. Perhaps, instead of seeking to destroy the humans, she could find a way to coexist with them. Perhaps, through diplomacy and negotiation, a new balance of power could be struck, one that would benefit both sides. The Empress shook her head, pushing the thought aside. Such a notion went against everything she had ever believed, everything she had ever fought for. But as she stared at the map, the weight of her empire's future bearing down upon her, she realized that she might have to consider options that once seemed unthinkable. The path forward was uncertain, fraught with challenges and difficult decisions, but one thing was clear. The alien Empress would not rest until she had found a way to secure her empire's place in the galaxy, no matter the cost. In a surprising turn of events, the alien Empress found herself considering a course of action that would have been unthinkable just a short time ago. As she grappled with the new reality of the human strength and the potential consequences of further conflict, a bold idea began to take shape in her mind. The Empress, known for her ruthless and unyielding nature, had always believed that diplomacy was a tool of the weak. She had built her empire on the principles of strength, dominance, and unwavering resolve. But now, faced with an enemy that had proven themselves to be a formidable force, she realized that a different approach might be necessary. With a heavy heart and a sense of trepidation, the Empress made a decision that would change the course of galactic history. She would seek peace with the humans, a truce that would allow both sides to coexist without the constant threat of war looming over them. The Empress summoned her most trusted diplomat, a skilled negotiator known for his ability to bridge even the most hostile divides. She tasked him with reaching out to the human leaders to propose a meeting where the terms of a truce could be discussed. The news of the Empress's intentions sent shockwaves throughout her empire. Many of her advisors and generals were outraged, believing that such a move was a sign of weakness. They argued that the humans should be crushed, their armada destroyed, and their spirit broken. But the Empress, her resolve unwavering, silenced their objections with a single, piercing look. As the diplomat set out on his mission, the galaxy held its breath. The idea of the mighty alien Empress seeking peace with the once insignificant humans was almost too incredible to believe. Speculation ran rampant, with some wondering if it was all an elaborate ruse, a trap designed to lure the humans into a false sense of security. But the humans, ever cautious and wary of the Empress's intentions, agreed to the meeting. They chose a neutral location, a remote space station situated on the fringes of contested territory. The station, normally a hub of trade and commerce, was transformed into a heavily guarded fortress, with both sides deploying their most advanced security measures to ensure the safety of their representatives. The Empress, accompanied by a small entourage of her most trusted advisors, arrived at the space station in a sleek black spacecraft that exuded an aura of power and authority. The human delegation, led by a group of seasoned diplomats and military leaders, greeted her with a mix of respect and apprehension. As the two sides sat across from each other in the station's main conference room, the tension was palpable. The Empress, her regal bearing and piercing gaze as imposing as ever, began the negotiations with a simple statement. "I have come to seek peace," she said, her voice echoing through the room. "The conflict between our peoples has gone on for too long, and it is time for us to find a way to coexist." The human delegates, surprised by the Empress's words, exchanged glances of disbelief. They had come prepared for a battle of wits, for a series of demands and counter-demands. But the Empress's offer of peace had caught them off guard. As the negotiations unfolded, both sides found themselves grappling with a new reality. The humans, emboldened by their recent victory, were reluctant to simply accept the Empress's offer without guarantees of their safety and autonomy. They demanded concessions, assurances that the alien empire would respect their sovereignty and right to self-determination. The Empress, her pride still smarting from the defeat, found herself struggling to find a balance between her desire for peace and her need to maintain the strength and integrity of her empire. She knew that any agreement would require compromises, sacrifices that would test the limits of her authority and the loyalty of her subjects. But as the talks progressed, a glimmer of hope began to emerge. The Empress and the human leaders, through a series of frank and sometimes heated discussions, began to find common ground. They recognized that both sides had much to gain from a stable and peaceful galaxy, and that the alternative, a prolonged and devastating war, would benefit no one. The road ahead was still uncertain, and the details of the truce would need to be hammered out through countless hours of negotiations and diplomacy. But for the first time in generations, the possibility of peace between the alien empire and the human race seemed within reach. As the Empress and the human delegates shook hands, sealing the first tentative steps towards a new era of cooperation, the galaxy watched in awe. The once unthinkable had become reality, and the course of history had been forever changed. The alien Empress and the human leaders found themselves in uncharted territory as they sat across from each other in the grand conference room of the neutral space station. The fate of the galaxy hung in the balance, and the weight of their responsibilities bore down upon them like the gravity of 1,000 suns. The Empress, her regal attire a stark contrast to the utilitarian uniforms of the human delegates, began the meeting with a gesture of goodwill. She reached into a small, ornate box and withdrew a shimmering orb, a symbol of her empire's technological prowess. With a slow, deliberate motion, she placed the orb on the table between them. "This," she said, her voice softening slightly, "is a token of our sincerity. It contains the schematics for one of our most advanced energy sources, a technology that could revolutionize your civilization." The human leaders, their eyes widening in surprise, leaned forward to examine the orb. They had heard whispers of the alien empire's incredible technological achievements, but to have such knowledge freely offered was a gesture they had never expected. The Empress watched their reactions closely, gauging their response. She knew that the offer of the orb was a calculated risk, a gamble that could either build trust or be seen as a hollow attempt at manipulation. But she also understood that if peace was to be achieved, both sides would need to make concessions and show a willingness to cooperate. As the human leaders studied the orb, the Empress took the opportunity to speak more candidly about her intentions. "I know that our past actions have given you little reason to trust us," she said, her voice tinged with a hint of regret. "But I am here today because I believe that we have more to gain by working together than by continuing this destructive conflict." The human delegates, their initial shock giving way to cautious optimism, began to engage the Empress in a more open dialogue. They spoke of their own desires for peace, of the toll that the war had taken on their people and resources. They also spoke of their fears, of the lingering mistrust that years of hostility had engendered. As the conversation progressed, the Empress found herself impressed by the humans' candor and their willingness to engage in honest discourse. She had always viewed them as a lesser species, a civilization that could never hope to match the sophistication and power of her own. But now, faced with their intelligence and their determination, she began to see them in a new light. The human leaders, for their part, were equally surprised by the Empress's demeanor. They had expected her to be arrogant, unyielding, and dismissive of their concerns. Instead, they found her to be a formidable but reasonable negotiator, someone who was willing to listen and consider their perspective. As the talks continued, the Empress and the human delegates began to delve into the specifics of their respective civilizations. The humans spoke of their technological advancements, their breakthroughs in fields like artificial intelligence and quantum computing. They also spoke of their cultural achievements, their art, literature, and music that had flourished despite the hardships of war. The Empress, in turn, shared her own civilization's accomplishments. She spoke of the vast network of trade routes that connected the far reaches of her empire, of the incredible feats of engineering that had allowed them to harness the power of stars and bend the fabric of space-time. She also spoke of her people's rich history, of the ancient traditions and philosophies that had shaped their society for millennia. As the two sides exchanged knowledge and ideas, a newfound respect began to grow between them. They realized that, for all their differences, they shared a common desire for progress, for exploration, and for understanding the mysteries of the universe. The Empress, her initial reservations slowly melting away, found herself drawn to the humans' passion and their unwavering spirit. She realized that, in their struggle against her empire, they had displayed a level of courage and resilience that was truly remarkable. The human leaders, in turn began to see the Empress in a more nuanced light. They recognized that, beneath her stern exterior and her imperial bearing, there was a leader who genuinely cared for her people and who sought to build a better future for all. As the meeting drew to a close, the Empress and the human delegates knew that there was still much work to be done. Treaties would need to be drafted, compromises would need to be made, and old wounds would need to be healed. But they also knew that, in this moment, they had taken the first crucial step towards a brighter tomorrow. With a final, tentative handshake, the alien Empress and the human leaders parted ways, each knowing that the course of history had been irrevocably altered. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but for the first time in generations, there was a glimmer of hope on the horizon. The alien Empress returned to her empire, her mind still reeling from the unprecedented events that had transpired at the meeting with the human leaders. As her spacecraft docked at the Imperial Palace, she was greeted by a throng of anxious advisors and officials, all eager to hear the outcome of the historic summit. With a heavy heart, the Empress gathered her court in the Grand Amphitheater, the very same place where she had once announced countless victories and conquests. But today, the atmosphere was different. The air was thick with anticipation and uncertainty, as if the entire empire was holding its collective breath. As the Empress took her place on the raised dais, she could feel the weight of 1,000 eyes upon her. She knew that her next words would shape the future of her people, and perhaps the entire galaxy. "My loyal subjects," she began, her voice echoing through the vast chamber, "I come before you today with news that will change the course of our history. I have met with the leaders of the human race, and together, we have taken the first steps towards a new era of peace and cooperation." A murmur rippled through the gathered crowd, a mix of shock, disbelief, and cautious optimism. The Empress held up a hand, silencing the whispers. "I know that many of you may question this decision," she continued, her gaze sweeping across the sea of faces. "For generations, we have viewed the humans as our enemies, as a lesser species unworthy of our respect. But I have seen firsthand the strength of their spirit, the depth of their knowledge, and the potential for a future where our civilizations can coexist in harmony." The Empress spoke of the meeting in detail, sharing the insights she had gained and the common ground that had been found. She spoke of the humans' incredible technological achievements, their rich cultural heritage, and their unwavering determination in the face of adversity. As she spoke, the Empress could sense a shift in the mood of the crowd. The initial skepticism and resistance began to give way to curiosity and even a tentative sense of hope. The advisors and officials, many of whom had spent their entire lives preparing for war against the humans, found themselves considering the possibilities of a different path. The Empress, her confidence growing with each word, outlined her vision for the future. She spoke of a galaxy where the alien empire and the human race could work together, sharing knowledge, resources, and technology. She spoke of the incredible advancements that could be made, the wonders that could be discovered, and the peace that could be achieved. As the Empress concluded her speech, the amphitheater erupted in a chorus of cheers and applause. The people of the empire, so long accustomed to the drumbeat of war and the rhetoric of conquest, found themselves embracing the promise of a brighter tomorrow. In the days and weeks that followed, the Empress and her advisors worked tirelessly to build upon the foundation that had been laid at the summit. They reached out to their counterparts in the human government, establishing lines of communication and negotiating the terms of a formal peace treaty. The process was not without its challenges and setbacks. There were still those on both sides who harbored deep-seated animosities and who sought to undermine the fragile peace. But the Empress and the human leaders remained steadfast in their commitment, knowing that the alternative to peace was a return to the destructive cycle of war and suffering. As the negotiations progressed, the Empress and the human leaders began to develop a deeper understanding and appreciation for one another. They found common ground in their shared love of science and exploration, in their desire to unlock the mysteries of the universe, and to build a better future for all sentient beings. And so, after months of intense diplomacy and countless hours of discussion, the alien Empress and the human leaders stood side by side on a grand stage, their respective flags fluttering in the artificial breeze of the space station. With a flourish of pens and a burst of applause, they signed the historic peace treaty, officially ending the long and bitter conflict between their civilizations. As the ink dried on the parchment, the Empress and the human leaders knew that their work was far from over. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, as old habits and prejudices died hard. But they also knew that, together, they had the power to shape a new destiny for the galaxy, one where cooperation and understanding reigned supreme. And so, with a final, triumphant embrace, the alien Empress and the human leaders turned to face the future, ready to embark on a new journey of discovery and hope. As the years passed, the bond between the alien Empress and the human leaders continued to grow and flourish. What had begun as a tentative peace treaty had blossomed into a true partnership, a union of civilizations that had once been bitter enemies. The Empress and the human leaders worked tirelessly to foster understanding and cooperation between their peoples. They established joint research initiatives, where the brightest minds from both civilizations could come together to tackle the greatest challenges facing the galaxy. They created cultural exchange programs, allowing artists, musicians, and scholars to share their traditions and learn from one another. As the two civilizations grew closer, the benefits of their alliance became increasingly apparent. The technological advancements made possible by the sharing of knowledge and resources were nothing short of astounding. The alien empire's mastery of faster-than-light travel combined with humanity's expertise in artificial intelligence and robotics, leading to breakthroughs that had once been the stuff of science fiction. Together, the alien empire and the human race explored the farthest reaches of the galaxy, discovering new worlds and encountering exotic forms of life. They established outposts and colonies on distant planets, working hand in hand to build a better future for all. The Empress and the human leaders were at the forefront of this new era of discovery and cooperation. They met regularly to discuss the progress of their joint ventures and to plan for the future. Over time, their meetings became less formal and more friendly, as they developed a deep respect and admiration for one another. The Empress found herself increasingly drawn to the human way of life, to their passion for individual freedom, and their unwavering commitment to the greater good. She marveled at their resilience in the face of adversity and their ability to find joy and beauty in even the darkest of times. The human leaders, in turn, were impressed by the Empress's wisdom and her dedication to her people. They saw in her a leader who was willing to put aside her own pride and ambition for the sake of peace and progress. They admired her grace under pressure and her ability to navigate the complex political landscape of the galaxy. As the bond between the Empress and the human leaders deepened, they began to see each other not just as allies, but as friends. They shared meals together, exchanged gifts, and even visited each other's homeworlds. The Empress found herself spending more and more time among the humans, learning their customs and their ways. And so it came as no surprise when, on a warm summer evening on Earth, the Empress and the human leaders gathered together to celebrate the anniversary of their historic peace treaty. They stood on a balcony overlooking a vast city, its lights twinkling like stars in the night sky. The Empress, her heart full of emotion, raised a glass in toast. "To our friendship," she said, her voice soft but clear. "And to the future we will build together." The human leaders, their eyes shining with respect and affection, raised their glasses in return. "To the Empress," they said in unison, "and to the bond that will never be broken." As the night wore on, the Empress and the human leaders talked and laughed, sharing stories of their adventures and their dreams for the future. They spoke of the challenges that still lay ahead, of the work that still needed to be done to bring lasting peace and prosperity to the galaxy. But they also spoke of the incredible progress that had already been made, of the once unthinkable alliances that had been forged, and the barriers that had been broken down. They marveled at the way their two civilizations had come together, at the way they had learned to see beyond their differences and to recognize the common humanity that bound them all. As the first light of dawn began to creep over the horizon, the Empress and the human leaders knew that it was time to say goodbye. But they also knew that their bond would endure, that the friendship they had forged would continue to guide them in the years and decades to come. And so, with a final embrace and a promise to meet again soon, the alien Empress and the human leaders parted ways, each knowing that they had been a part of something truly special. They had shown the galaxy that peace was possible, that two vastly different civilizations could come together and build a better future for all. As the Empress boarded her spacecraft and set course for her distant empire, she knew that the journey ahead would be long and filled with challenges. But she also knew that, with the humans by her side, there was nothing they couldn't achieve. Together, they would continue to reach for the stars, to push the boundaries of what was possible, and to create a legacy that would endure for generations to come. And so, the story of the alien Empress and the humans came to a close, not with a whimper, but with a promise of a brighter tomorrow. A tomorrow where the bonds of friendship and understanding would continue to grow, where the wonders of the universe would be explored hand in hand, and where the once impossible dream of peace would become a shining reality.